How do you adapt to unstable market conditions in a post-COVID world? Is agility still yielding adaptability? Hello, SaaS leaders! Welcome to Swattage, the Software Innovation Lab. If you're new here, my name is Dale Richards. I'm a software innovator from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I love making software that changes the world. I'm interviewing top experts on the cutting edge of SaaS leadership and sharing their insights with you. If you want to foster innovation, cultivate your culture, and disrupt the market with new software products that change the world, start now by subscribing and hitting the bell. My guest today is Allia DeAngelis, core organizer for DevOps Days Salt Lake City. She's been a principal SaaS program manager, DevOps transformation and agile coach, and has made a name for herself in value stream and enterprise agility. She's an expert in organizational evolution, design thinking, software development, automation, adult organizational learning, and cloudification. Today, she's sharing her insights into Rewilding Agile in the post-COVID era. So, COVID. We're in a COVID era. There's lots of instability, unpredictability, and that impacts our products, our delivery methods and methodologies, our cultures. So I want to get your take on all of these and widespread fragility. So where do we start?
What we're seeing right now in the business climate is a lot of fragility and fragile systems. This is brought to light in the COVID situation. However, they all predated what we're seeing today within the pandemic. The fragility is seen in really all areas. It's from our ability to get work done, to collaborate. You can see it with our products because people don't have the discretionary income that they thought they had before. They're at least holding on to that. So we're questioning our products, we're questioning our projects, our flow. Do we have the right people and our tools? So really everything is in question, and there's a little fracture in every bit of the organization. So once again, those things have always been there. They're just suddenly, all of them, all at once, apparent because of the stress test that the virus has put on everyone and everything. So there's opportunity within that. Once you can get through the stress and the shock, it's not always pleasant to find that you've got as many small fractures or even some large fractures within your organization. And once you move through, right, we all go through this grieving cycle. Once you move through the shock as a leader or even as a participant, the opportunity is to step back and breathe and to see them for what they are. They were already there. You functioned just fine. Now we see them. What do we want to do? So the opportunity is to step back and ask of yourselves and your colleagues, all right, what are these? Name it. What are these issues that we're seeing? Where are they located? That also helps the human brain to calm down and prepare ourselves for problem solving rather than reaction. You want to go from reaction to action, and naming it is that first step. Probably breathing is first and accepting what just happened. But the second thing is, okay, so let's just name it. Make a list. Use an online tool that has whiteboarding, or you can go into a shared SaaS document and list. Like, let's just make a list of all the problems we're seeing. Moving from reaction to action, making that list of what are you seeing, naming it, normalize it. It's okay. We've got this. We're all present and we lived through them. We have a stress test right now, and under stress, we crack in these certain areas.
So if we're cracking in all of these areas, how should we respond? I mean, you said name and normalize. Where do those actions lead?
After you normalize and name and you get it all out there, then make a decision around what do we want to address. But while you're addressing what needs to be addressed, so you're not reacting, you're acting, which immediately allows you to stay calmer in that storm. The last thing you want to do is see what just got exposed. So when you crack something open, and this probably seems obvious, some opportunity is exposed. It's usually during these times where the profound innovations come to light. So pulling your team together and saying, what are you seeing? Where could we meet the market in a different way? Where could our product be used elsewhere, right? 3M Post-it notes. Who knew it was going to be a Post-it note? It failed for its original intent. But then it became Post-it notes, and everybody uses Post-it notes. Well, maybe not everybody, but most people I know, right? So Post-it notes were born out of something, failed intent for a product. So what products do we have that will fill the market need, or how can we tweak them slightly, right? Don't invent a new product per se unless you have time to do that. But now is the time to calm yourself, kind of stop, drop, and roll. Calm yourself down, name and normalize, and then look to see what you can act upon as the opportunities open up. With that, often we think, well, how do we get that done, right? How do we get that done in this type of an environment? And what's interesting to me is it exposes something within my discipline, within our discipline, that we really hold sacred, which is you just need to be agile.
Okay, so COVID and Agile. Is Agile really adaptable enough for the post-COVID world? And if not, why not? What's wrong with Agile, if anything?
Agile is fragile. That is what a number of colleagues have said to me as of late, and participants in transformations. They'll say, Agile is fragile. They'll call stand-ups standoffs. Probably not the original intent of those cadences, and not the intent of the Agile founders for it to be fragile. But the more rigid you make things and the more structured, the more fragile they become. And agility originally was about delivering faster, right? Let's get software out the door so that we can learn. However, we've lost that. And so and Agile's not proving itself out today. I don't see it fixing what has been exposed through this virus stress test that we're all under. And so it brings to mind for me something that's been brewing in my head as a longtime Agilist, which is, let's just throw it all away. It's not serving you. It's not serving you because it has become overstructured. It's not about moving and adapting. It's about this plodding cadence, almost a gerbil wheel of, do it, cycle, cycle, cycle. So great, we can cycle through something over and over again, but are we making the right thing? And can I pivot when I need to pivot? And again, COVID is one thing. It's just a giant slap in the face. But the market is changing rapidly. It'll change in a heartbeat. Some entrepreneur or young person will say, I'm so irritated with working at this place. You can't get anything done, even though they're doing Agile. You can't get anything done. There's nothing innovative. I'm out. That person goes out in 9 months. They hire an offshore team. They use the cloud. They make a new product. And then the company, the corporation they were working at says, oh crap, this person just stole our market share. It happens all the time. The fortunes are in trouble because they can't pivot. They can't adapt. Agile doesn't fix that, how it's implemented today.
But if Agile doesn't fix that market adaptability, how it's implemented today, then what is it about Agile that we need to change or correct or reform, if you will?
How do we make agility less fragile? How do you rewild it? That is a balancing act that is really a skillful art that isn't a 2-day Scrum training. It is what I would call the intersection of the masculine and the feminine. So really the intersection between, as the author Adam Kahane says, of power and love. So love being, we want community. It's really invaluable. And that's where our power, as humans, we survived because we formed tribes. So our power is in tribe. However, we also need to be able to assert ourselves as SMEs. In spiral dynamics, they call it collective individualism. Power and love, masculine and feminine, waterfall and agile. So what is this middle way? And the middle way might look like this. So we start the retrospective. We give the purpose. This is what it is. This is what it isn't. Very, very masculine. This is our time frame. This is the agenda. Here's what we want. This is the deliverable. Masculine, feminine. One per Post-it note. What went well? Everybody does their one per Post-it note. Let's affinity sort these. What do you mean by that? Tell us more. What did that look like? Very feminine, right? Okay. Maybe we move to what could be improved, which could feel like a masculine exercise. Now we're getting down to the what went wrong. And I say, it's not what went wrong. It's what could be improved. So now we put, well, this could be improved and this could be improved. kind of a masculine notion, right? Well, yay, very feminine. What needs to change? Very masculine, but we can do it in a feminine way. Everybody does one per post-it note, affinity, sort them, tell us more. Let's label these masculine activity. Let's label these. Now we're going to normalize them. All right, well, what do we mean by that? And then we get real masculine and we say, everybody vote. You get 3 dot votes. Go vote. What are we going to work on? Then we step back and we go back into the feminine and we say, all right, so we voted. Are these really the top 3? Are they really the top 3? And then we revote, perhaps, if those are not the top 3. And that's our feminine. We're revoting. Everybody gets a choice. We collaborated. Then we move to, all right, you only get to do 2 things because your whip is 2. When we do more than 2 experiments, it's often overwhelming. We've got a lot of other work to do. So my finding and my experience is 2 experiments per sprint is enough. Now we're back into masculine and we say, yeah, I only get 2. And every time we do stand up, you're going to review those and report into how did I work towards the experiment? How's it going? That's very masculine. And then the feminine goes, yay, thank you, everybody. I'll see you in stand up tomorrow. Right? That is the middle way. And here's what I assert, that it is at the intersection of the masculine and feminine that lies adaptability. It is only there. Because if you have swung in either direction, you've become fragile and you do not come with your whole self. And so that's where that middle way is accessing all of those parts of our own selves as agilists.
So if adaptability is the middle way, we've accessed both parts of ourselves, right? The masculine and the feminine, like you said. What does that look like in terms of changing our individual behavior? And is that really an agile thing, or is it more broad than just the agile community? I mean, it feels like, we all want to be adaptable, and we should all have to be adaptable. So just talk to me. I'll sit up so that your eyes and my eyes and the camera and lens will be about at the same level.
Okay.
And I'm going to do an intro that I'll record at another time. And in fact, the questions that I'll ask you on the final version will not be shot right now. I'll I'll shoot myself and then kind of splice.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
So we're talking about product management maturity and value measurement specifically.
Yeah.
And if you're talking to a bunch of SaaS leaders, so these are the people that are chief product officers, VPs of product, chief technology officers, or like VPs of software development, who are.
It seems to me that especially as product organizations mature, that there tends to be this flywheel effect of we have more product managers, we have more development capacity, and so we can build more stuff. And as you're building more stuff, you're sort of getting to this peak of this curve of the value that a customer can realize. And if you go over that peak, a lot of times we call it the user happiness peak, where you end up with a complex solution that people have a hard time finding value in. And that's a common problem that product organizations run into as they scale, as they get bigger and bigger, is that there's not as much there's not as much evidence of whether a feature is especially valuable because it's absorbed into the profit of the entire organization. And so to graduate to like a new level of maturity, the product organization needs to get to a point where they're really good at measuring value. An early product organization will know that because they will run out of business if it's not valuable. But a large organization tends to sustain mediocrity because they don't have a really good way of seeing how incrementally valuable each little feature or roadmap is. And so you have to get to a point where you start to create a methodology around figuring out if there's value. And so what I've sort of gravitated toward is that ideally the best way to measure value is something that Simon Sinek will talk about, which is the start with why, and that if you're following a why, you're creating a cult following, and that value will sort of flow in the wake of that movement, or that great product, kind of like an Apple kind of following that people have. and that's a great way of looking at it at a very high level, but to start diving in and figuring out how to, what kind of levers are available to you and what kind of lenses are available to figuring out how things are valuable. I've sort of started to divide it into these 5 main categories. Number 1 is what I call vision, which is, it's kind of a proxy for that why that Simon Sinek talks about, which is, Martin Luther King had a dream that one day people would be able to sit down and live in peace together, or whatever. That was his vision. He saw something in the future. So every product should have some ideal state that we see in the future that is basically eternal. Like we're always reaching for that thing. We might even get to that state. Like even Martin Luther King's vision is realized from time to time when people do come together and they are in peace. But there's always this friction of pulling out of that state. And so a good vision is something that you're eternally looking for. But it's also very elemental, like the difference between Blockbuster Video and Netflix, for example.
Tell us more about fast feedback loops in the context of SaaS feature experimentation. How do we apply that adaptive mindset in our product innovation?
SaaS naturally lends itself to adaptive thinking. So if you're missing that adaptive thinking and you're trying to utilize and exploit SaaS, you're going to miss out on the benefits. Because the nice thing about going up to the cloud is I can experiment with something very quickly and say that isn't going to serve us and pull it back down so I can adapt. Also, you can scale in and out, right? So let's say I'm a floral company and it's Valentine's Day. SaaS allows me to scale, adapt to the market, and then shrink back down. There's some elasticity that I can exploit in that. So if you're approaching SaaS in that rigid way, you'll miss out on the opportunity. The opportunities are endless for innovation and experimentation and meeting big demand and then being able to scale back down so you can manage your bottom line and your budget. Servers are very expensive, and being able to go elastic in and out is what SaaS really offers you. So SaaS really is underlying that adaptive business strategy. And if you are not, again, I keep saying, if you are not exploiting that, you're missing out. If you treat it just like a data center, you might as well just be on-prem. SaaS allows you to experiment.
Can you describe that experimentation a little more? What does that look like?
Definitely SaaS allows you to respond better and more quickly to crisis situations. You should be able, if you've done it right and mindfully, you should be able to tear things down. So if you're trying to save money, you should be able to pull down some servers. But you'll also be able to experiment. So say you want to push a new widget out there, you should be able to bifurcate some of the code and send it out for a test, an A/B test to just part of your demographic. It'll allow you to throw up a new experiment very quickly. And so SaaS allows you, if you've already got that in place, again, you can exploit the opportunities that are revealing themselves.
Let's go back to what you said earlier about adaptation. So we can run A/B tests and experiment, yes, but how do we make the organization, like the culture, more adaptable? Isn't it enough to just be agile?
Agility won't make you adaptive. So the fundamentals of agility asked us to have cross-functional teams, to talk, to have an open floor, but to actually get things done and not overstructure it, but to hold a container of uncomfortable diversity. As Agilists, we will often reinforce the fragility that we're seeing in Agile practices by becoming over rigid. So there are wars about what is valuable, what's not, how many days should a sprint be, what's a user story, what isn't a user story, how many columns should I have in Jira. So what we've done is we've taken that command and control, the need to have a grip and to task and track, and it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing, and we've just put on the softness of Agile practices. So we're using Agile practices to do the same thing we've always done. So now I'm going to swing the other direction. What I also have seen Agilists do is kind of throw up their hands and give up and say, this is the team. We don't disturb them. Everything's fine. And it's almost like a permissive parent. There's really no way to ever know what a team does. So I'm just supposed to guess. I've got millions of dollars in this project and I have no idea what I'm going to get. And I said, so no. And again, this is the other side of the coin that I'm seeing, where there's not a lot of good middle way with Agilists. They go all the way over here and they say, there's no way to tell. The team is the team. You don't disturb them. And the people who are funding them are like, well, what am I getting? It's too far. So we're swinging on either direction. We swing all the way over to pretending like we're not controlling the crap out of them, but we are, and we're controlling everything, creating fragility. Or we're going all the way over to permissive and way too relaxed and protecting irresponsible behavior. So moving through that to how do I throw Agile away and how can I adapt to what is happening within the market? And again, those companies who had those adaptive processes and those adaptive ways of interacting and working in place, they're fine. They are pivoting, they are moving, they are jiving. You know, they're all kinds of in that boxing ring, nimble, right? No matter how old they are. If you don't understand adaptation, you will not survive.
Okay, so what exactly do we need to understand about adaptation then? I mean, it's kind of that blind spot that you can't see when you're looking at yourself. I'm sure a lot of organizations feel like they're adaptable, but break down adaptation for us to the basic granular level. What does that look like, and how does an inflexible organization move toward greater adaptation?
Adaptation is something that is really a part of the natural world. And if you can go and observe, well, what does adaptation look like? How long does that take? How do other species, how does our species adapt? It's very informative. Adaptation really lies at the intersection of learning and balance. Adaptation is being able, particularly as a leader, it's being able to stop, drop, and roll once again, to be able to name something, normalize it, understand it, and then exploit what's available and what's out there. Adaptation is reclaiming your learning capabilities and your tolerance for diversity and other. And this is not a diversity conversation. This isn't, you need to go and have diversity. Adaptation and diversity go hand in hand. So the example that I often give is, how can you adapt if, I'll step back. If you don't have a new idea and everyone around you has the same idea, then how can you change your mindset and how are you expected to adapt? Adaptation is a topic that is really broad and deep because, again, when you have people who all say the same things, and I point here because we're all just on this same level and we're all saying the exact same thing, we have the same opinions, what are you going to adapt to? Each other's nuanced idea of sameness. As one of my colleagues says, he pulls different voices in the room, even the ones he doesn't particularly enjoy, because if he doesn't do that, he will create the exact same thing that he has today. The same thing, which means they aren't adapting, they're just recreating what today is. So if you want to adapt, again, this is a leadership thing. Name it, normalize it, and then look, and then invite diverse voices. Allow yourself to be triggered or uncomfortable when you pull other people in the room who make you feel uncomfortable and have uncomfortable ideas, and you can move through that together. You will find something new. It's how the Mayo Clinic is so successful. When a client comes in, the very first thing they do is they assign a cross-discipline, cross-functional team. So welcome to the awkwardness. They're all specialists. They all know what they're doing. They're all high paid. And that person is healed by looking at them not just holistically, but having a holistic team who says, yes, that may mean nothing to you within your discipline, but in my discipline, here's what it could mean. Let's go explore that. Are there other ties?
So if we want to increase that adaptive mindset in our organizations, where do we start? How do we transform the way that we work and how we collaborate?
How do we do that? That's an often asked question. And I answer it with probably a not very popular answer, which is it starts with you. So transformation could be anything. And transformation is, I'm not ever going to go back, right? We change. I change clothes. I change how I regard you. Transformation is I burn the wood is ash. I never go back. As the leader or the person who's showing up, or even as a guerrilla leader, meaning you're not the one who's calling the meeting or who's calling the collaboration, but you're in it and you're participating. It really starts with you. It starts with you being comfortable with being vulnerable, which I know is very popular, Brene Brown books and all of her research about what vulnerability invites us into. Even play. If I can be playful with somebody else, you actually can't be stressed and angry and playful at the same time. Feel free to Google that. You just can't. So how I show up as the person wanting to transform our collaboration, it invites other people neurologically to calm down and collaborate with me as well. I could even be intentional about where I sit in the room, the questions that I ask, the way I look at somebody. And because those are all that need to connect. When we talk about collaboration, let's be honest, there are a couple things I want as a person in collaboration. One is I want to connect. I want to connect with myself, with my work, and with you. I don't want to feel isolated. So I want to collaborate. I want to be regarded as interesting and important and with dignity. So underneath collaboration sits all of those things. So if I, as a participant or as a leader or a facilitator, am not inviting those things into the room, you will simply have a status meeting. And people will do just enough to not get in trouble or to be singled out. They will stay safe. When people say create safety, it's not kumbaya. You don't sit there and sing and then everybody's better. It's how I show up, because we have something called mirror neurons, which means I trigger off of what you are feeling. Your neurons affect my neurons. So when we say, how do we transform the collaboration? How you show up and how you name and normalize and you adapt to the situation. There are times I'm called out as the facilitator for doing something or not doing something. So how do I adapt my agenda? How do I adapt my behavior? Even recently, I was in a planning session, a road mapping session, and running that and trying to get through my agenda, and had lost my stance, right? That facilitator, that collaborative stance, and was trying to push through. And a participant, which we had invited them to do at the beginning, a participant said, Allia, you interrupted me and you're not listening. How did I adapt in that situation, right? I adapted from get it done. I stepped back and I said, you're right, I did. I'm sorry. I'm trying to push forward to help me to slow down. So how do we transform and adapt our collaboration? It really starts with certainly spaces, but people want to create a space, but a space doesn't do it. I see fabulous spaces in a frightening environment. Nobody uses the spaces. It's safer to stay at my desk. So it really starts with me, as an example, saying, I'm going to be adaptive, I'm going to be vulnerable and collaborative, and I'm going to transform me. I've said this more than once to my teams. I'm working on this thing. It's going to be not graceful. Not a phrase, I know. So please be patient with me while I learn. They go, oh, Allia's learning. That's crazy. I'm going to do that too. She's allowing herself to transform.